Okay, just for the record on YouTube, I want to reiterate this is the Profitable Real Estate Agent Plan Call. We are in week 11. We have this week, and then we have next week, and we take a couple of weeks off in between so that we give you a break and we refine the course a little bit. And we have gone through a lot of changes this time in the course because I constantly tried to simplify things and make them more easily digestible by the logical brain. So what you should be seeing here is the curriculum. So the curriculum, just to reiterate where we've been, where we end up today, and where we'll finish over this tonight and next week. We started this off by reminding you that this is a strategic framework to build your business. Okay, that's what it is. And I wish so desperately somebody had introduced me to strategic thinking way back when. But I didn't learn that until much later after my mentor had introduced me to a book, this one here called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And it was that framework I used to begin to think strategically, which led to far better tactics. And I just finished a Griffin training one-on-one in the office here, where we talk to people that are 22, 23. We have twins that are 26. We have a bunch of people that are young and they're executing this plan and they're already selling houses because they're staying inside of a strategy. So that it's not someday when they have experience or whatever they do, it's today because they go out and they meet people that they can actually help and be different immediately, right? So in the first week, we explained that model. And then as we discussed today with my team, as a business person, you have to understand that you need a financial goal. That's what you need. You need a financial goal, and you need to understand that this business is built off the back of listings and that we are going to build strategies for you to understand how to list properties at or above the median price in the geography within which you prefer to do business so that you can be profitable. That's the whole purpose of this course, which we give away for free to everybody, right? But that does require you to get into the mindset that you are a business owner. And then if you're sitting here with me in some form or fashion, you're my partner. I am giving you information to partner up with you so that you can bulletproof your mind to stop thinking like you can wing it, to stop thinking like you can just grab some leads and miraculously emerge a business. It doesn't work like that. You have to understand what a professional, bulletproof self-image as a business person looks like and how to do that. That was week 3. Then we get right down to the content that is core and fundamental. I'm sitting right next to the table where I had it, my buyer and seller plans. We talk to you about what the content pieces are that are in there. Then in week 5, we turn it into these information products that establish the beginning of a unique selling proposition way of doing business for you. It sets you up for success like nothing I've ever done before for myself, and I share with you. But you can't do business with everybody, so you need to understand who is going to be ideal for you before you go out there, because I don't want you to get discouraged that you might make an irresistible offer to the wrong person. So we talk a lot about that definition of avatar. It's a very core fundamental concept in marketing. Then, imagine this, week 7, we finally get to leads. Because this industry is so obsessed with the word leads, we often start off with that, and we never set ourselves up to understand how to arrive at leads prepared, organized, intentional. So we talked about that week 7, and then we gave you very specific formulation of scripts. You cannot wing what you say, especially when you are newer in the business, and especially when you're long in the tooth in the business like me. I could easily default to winging it based on resume, experience, and I would never give that new person in front of me the proper experience. So scripting and influencing people with laws of psychology and marketing that are benevolent are absolutely paramount to your understanding how to be successful. But one of the key points that I've learned, being somebody who has sustained himself and his family income in this business for 25 years, is that you have to understand that the raw material in this business that I'm teaching you to move along and through your business is a contact. Contact information is the raw material. But when you move somebody from a lead to a prospect, it's really important to understand that that prospect, you have to, I said this to a couple of my one-on-one coaching clients today. I said, I have come to really appreciate a good prospect. Really appreciate it. Be grateful for it. Meaning somebody that has a real why, a motivation to do so. And more importantly, they will accept my gift of information. They will accept my gift of insight. And we can begin to build a good, respectful relationship as professional and prospect. So I have to really protect those relationships at the highest level to prevent the wolves from stealing them, which the number one wolf is my own neglect. So we talk heavily about that in week 9. Then I condensed client care because obviously once a prospect trusts you and they become your client, you have to care for them in very specific ways. However, having said that, if you want a good client relationship, it goes all the way back to how you make the offer of the unique selling proposition information. You give it to them before there's ever a commitment. They move from lead to prospect. You continuously give them information. You are conditioning those people to be ready to be a good client for you, and you to have made all these promises to stick to those promises. And that's it. I have had 2 very difficult conversations, and I mean difficult, with 2 of my clients, simply because those clients have properties that are not selling, the market is changing, and we have to talk about price. And we have to talk about lowering price. And we have to talk about, in a couple of things, both cases, reconditioning. However, having said that, when I'm caring for those clients, and one couple's in Florida, so we did several Zooms and we're going back and forth. The other couple, they were in Florida. They're back up here now. I went face to face and sat inside their living room with them, and it was all calm because they know I'm executing this plan that I have said I would execute. And I'm giving them the real live feedback from the market as this market maker executing a plan. And what are you going to do? You're going to argue with evidence? You're going to argue with the feedback that's logical and commonsensical? No. So caring for people becomes a very easy thing. Now, that leads to the closing process. And amazing how this class works, because I actually do this every day. I am on the eve of finally closing on a property tomorrow that I have literally gotten. I didn't sell it 6 times, but I could have, because my seller is, he's a biotech engineer. He's extremely paranoid about making a mistake and taking advantage of himself. He was very stuck on what his perception of value was. And we just stayed patient with him over the last year, I think it's going to be now, where we just stayed steady and continued to execute the plan. So he could see by the 6th offer, there wasn't going to be some dramatic change. And worse, as the market began to soften, we might not get back to where we were. Okay. So the closing process, after we got the offer accepted, is a little bit hairy, because the anecdote here that I'll set this call up tonight with is that this house is a huge house, 7,000 square feet, of all sorts of 3 floors and really sophisticated systemization with in-floor heating that was never really finished in the house, or that was one piece, a pool that had a winter cover on it. So this closing process, just because we finally go under agreement and everybody agrees, we've got this closing process that is tenuous at best. And it needed almost like an entire business focus versus everything else. Great broker on the other side, thank goodness. So I'll get into some of those details. But that's why how you close is how you grow. Because even on the buy side, even though I had to lean in on them a little bit, I want those people, because it's a local sale and they're going to be able to talk about me and, of course, the buyer agent. I just want to make sure we do a good job for everybody and everybody feels fully served, and it's the happiest closing we can possibly get, because that is a direct reflection on the company and how our reputation goes, and that's how we grow. Okay? So let's get into that tonight. So bear with me one sec. We're going to get into this. I just want to make sure I'm showing it on the live stream as well, which I am. We're there. And you should all be seeing this on, tell me if you are seeing on Zoom, how you close is how you grow. Somebody want to tell me yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so how you close is how you grow, and that was the anecdote I gave you. So, why is it important to be strategic during the closing process? Well, a strategic approach allows you to care for your client at the highest level during the closing process because that's when they're what? The most anxious. And that's on average. I mean, that's not an absolute statement. But when somebody finally goes under agreement, as the saying goes, shit just got real, right? It's moving time. And all of the emotions and the flooding of the ending and a new beginning, it can make people crazy. And a lot of them, quite frankly, can get paralyzed and not do what they need to do to get themselves to the finish line, right? So it's very important that you are paying attention to detail at the highest level. Not that I don't expect you all to be doing that throughout the process, but I want you to remember intentionality during the closing process needs to be at the highest. Now, why do I preach this so enthusiastically at this point? Is because early in my career, I was a very transactional agent at one point. I started off by doing all of these high level service things, being that person for others. And then I just got addicted to doing transactions. Not that I didn't have a closing coordinator, not that I didn't believe in that, but my own personal attention to the closing details started to wane. And I could see that that was birthing unhappy past clients. So I can't emphasize enough that your attention to detail needs to be at the highest level during the closing process that it can be, because the reason being, your client is probably the most anxious at this point and judging you heavily, right? So, what do you need to focus on when organizing the closing process yourself? So, let's go back in time when I didn't have a closing coordinator and I did it myself because there was a time for that. And then we go through this, right? Well, when you organize the closing process by yourself, you must be proficient at crossing T's, dotting I's in what? A checklisted manner that focuses on critical dates and deadlines. See, oftentimes we get excited when an offer is being written. So whether we are the seller side or the buyer side, doesn't matter. We get excited. We're like, oh my gosh, this is a real deal. This is going on. And for the sales part of our brain, there is nothing more intoxicating than a deal coming together. And you get excited. And when you get excited, you don't necessarily focus on details. You're like, oh, yeah, whatever, let's just get it tied up. That's the attitude somewhere inside of all of us. Let's just get it tied up. Let's just agree to this. Let's get moving to the next level. Oh, we'll figure it out. Not always the best thing to do, because what you want to do is imagine. Now, again, I know on the buy side, it might be super competitive and you might be dropping, certain contingencies to get the deal. And by the way, that's what the buyers did on this. They dropped the language on the home inspection to be for informational purposes, which means nothing, by the way. And I'll get into that anecdote after I go through this. You have to really make sure you're paying attention to the detail so you're communicating properly to the seller or the buyer, depending on which side of the transaction you have, especially if you have both sides. Because it really does matter. Dates and deadlines are not to be taken lightly. And not only should you hear that from me and embed that in your brain, you should be discussing that with your client. You have to say, before we sign this, I want to make sure you understand that we could lose this deal if we cannot perform within this time frame. So let's just take a quick beat to talk through it and make sure it's realistic for all of us. It's really important that dates and deadlines are met, because if they're not, what do we have to do? We have to then get involved in written extensions and renegotiations. And when all of those details get discombobulated, which they typically do anyway, most deals aren't perfectly smooth, we start to lose control over the emotions of the parties, which are running high. Okay. So should you delegate your closing process to a dedicated closing coordinator? So I've told you a checklisted system. And by the way, I have to say this, when I say systems, a lot of people make an excuse. Oh, it's difficult. No, it is not difficult. A system starts with a pen and a yellow pad of paper that says, when I'm doing a closing, for example, a closing system, I'm supposed to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And I write it down. I get it out of my head. I take it through my arm and I put it on a piece of paper. And if I want to turn it into a checklisted book of strategies, I put a 3-hole punch through this. I go to Staples and I buy myself a binder and I put a section that says closing strategy, closing system. And all I have in there is a checklist. So each time I get to that stage with one of my contacts, I open it up and I checklist myself against it. Now, of course, I could also turn that checklist into something that can be printed multiple times. I can put the property at the top, and every time I close something, I can checklist it. If I want to get sophisticated, I can add it to a Google spreadsheet. Low tech, high tech. If I want to go another level, I can buy a software that's a closing software and input my checklist into it. But none of that is necessary when you are beginning to learn how to create a systematic approach for yourself. You just make a list of all the things you're supposed to do and put it in a 3-ring binder. And every time you're in that process with somebody on a particular file, you'll have your cheat sheet. That's a systematized business versus winging it. Because when you wing it, your brain can't remember every T to cross and every I to dot, and inevitably you forget. So that's how you start a system. So when you delegate this, sure, but it's always best practices to have someone help you during the closing process to leverage your time. So as you get busy, now again, at Griffin, we have somebody dedicated to do that job anyway, because we have to be compliant as a company. So we have that person helping. Now, some of our agents are much more of a T crosser, an I dotter, and a detail person themselves. So sometimes they get a little bit, or give a little bit of pushback to the closing coordinator. But in between those two people, the reason we get people help is because we don't want an agent to think that they should just do it all on their own, because they need to leverage some time for compliance. If you spend a lot of time on compliance and you don't get help, it's simply taking time away from something else. Okay? Everything's an opportunity cost of time, aka time management. So yes, I think you can and should do this yourself in the beginning with a simple checklisted system that you are following. But I do believe at some point in time, you should get some help from the brokerage you're at. If they have somebody like we do, great. If not, you can find people that will help you just keep you accountable to the checklist and make sure you're in compliance with all the forms. I have a client I coach in Canada. He's so busy that his checklist for all his stuff is incomplete. And he had, the last time we talked, 7 of these things sitting there that he hadn't picked his check up on simply because he hadn't leveraged himself to get some help. Okay. So which parts of the closing, process should you delegate? Well, here's the key point to what I was just saying. Well, it's best to delegate the tactical parts, but not the human interactive. Okay. See, that's what once upon a time I found myself abdicating. I was giving not only the tactical stuff to my closing coordinator, Janice, but I was also leaving her to be the only one that was in the human interaction. Well, she was great at talking about the closing process, but when there was a conversation about, we have to renegotiate something after the home inspection, or there's anxiety about the mortgage, or there's another question, those people were feeling abandoned because I had delegated to the point of abdication, meaning completely I was checked out, that human interaction. And that's really, really important, because the best outcome is you end with a client who feels like you cared about them. So it's a very, very difficult business, to the extent that I know you all want to turn this into something that happens frequently. It repeats itself over and over. And you can imagine yourself doing business with multiple people at once. But when you're winging these things and you're not doing things systematized, inevitably somebody feels like you don't care about them anymore. What I do now, and again, in my business, because I'm always busy, I have multiple people caring for a particular situation. Laura's client care is my backup during their client experience with us. And then when we move to the next stage, our closing coordinator is there. But I make sure in both of those phases, like today and last week, I'm talking to my client about price reductions and staging and moving. I'm talking to my client about the closing process. I'm talking about, the system. Let's go back to this closing process I'm in now. Okay. In this process, I have somebody that is absolutely helping to make sure that my attorney is on track to get this thing closed. Okay. So she's in the peripheral watching the details of the dates and times, making sure, and this is why we use our attorney, John Holmgren, because he understands how important it is to us as a group to not have delays. We implored our client, please don't use some random attorney like for a closing process that has hair on it. These people want to close quickly. These people, although they have given us a contingency that said home inspection for informational purposes only, they did a 6-hour inspection. And they came up with some stuff that obviously wasn't for informational purposes only. We had a pool cover that we didn't open up so they couldn't see it for informational purposes. We had to get it opened, and it turns out the pool cover was stretched and it needed to be cleaned and fixed by my client. So I was on that. We also had an in-ground water system, floor heating, that had never really been used. We went back to our old client who we had to track down in Spain, ask him some questions, get our plumber over there, get our electrician over there to verify that this thing was in working order. So I had two things that originally was going to cost a $5,000 holdback, that originally they wanted a $25,000 holdback, that because I was caring for the details during the closing process, all got resolved, no holdback, right? None. And we ended up closing even 2 weeks before we were supposed to. So our process was so tight that it allowed me to pay very close attention to open-ended issues. And I absolutely would never have been able to abdicate those to a closing coordinator who's virtual to begin with, or even throw it back on my client care manager or my attorney. It takes a village to close a deal. Yeah, that's what it does. But I was still in the human interactive part, making phone calls, saying, I will meet your pool cover guy. Felipe, how quickly can you turn this around? Good, by Friday? Beautiful. Boom. Wellington, how quickly can you get back out to the house? Yep, it was a little confusing. I need a thermostat fix, and I need you to prove that these things work. Boom, done. Hey, guys, you got to get paid on the closing disclosure. Get your stuff to me quickly. Hey, John, the closing attorney, I need you to make sure that these guys need to get paid in full, because I can't be calling up my vendors and asking for favors and them chasing money. No good. No bueno, right? All of that got done because we have this system where I can delegate the T crossing and I dotting so that I am available to solve closing issues and meet those critical dates and deadlines without any kind of extension. The irony is, after all that, we got a little bit delayed because my seller is in Switzerland and was supposed to send stuff that didn't arrive quite by today. And because tomorrow is going to be a holiday, we're on Friday. So we quickly resolved for the movers of the buyer what's called a use and occupancy agreement to get them in. Now, this really took an enormous amount of attention to detail, and it is not a small deal for me. Because two reasons. One, it's 2.25 million. Two, more importantly, this is the 6th offer. And my seller is just too emotionally involved in this house. And it's finally at the point where he's not. And I am not letting him fall apart on me in this deal. And there were 16 different reasons in the beginning of this for these two people to feel taken advantage of. The buyer's wife loves this house. She's the prime mover. He's got all these questions, and it was kicking his feet and dragging, a little bit of an ego. All of that had to be dealt with speed based on that timeline, or it never closes. And I'm back to the drawing board looking for number 7 in a market that's cooling. No bueno, as I said earlier, right? So the pro tip here is an excellent closing process sets you up to create a happy past client, which we will talk about in our final session next week. It is critical to understand. And now he's in Switzerland. So you might say, well, who cares? He's in Switzerland. Is he ever coming back? That's not the point. We're going to set this guy up for continuous follow-up because we don't know that when he raises his girls there, he might not come back 7 years from now because they're going to go to college here. I don't know. He has family here. She has family here. I don't know. But everybody's going to be treated like I am trying to manufacture a happy past client who's likely to repeat if they do come back and refer at bare minimum because they're still out here doing business as companies based in Cambridge. Okay, voila. That was an easy one to go through quickly. Let's open this up for Q&A and anything. You can ask me anything. I know some of you have gotten a double dose of me tonight. Thank you for coming to live training and being here. But questions about that from any of the folks that I didn't talk to already today? Ty, Jackie, Nigel, Ben, Pablo, Mary, any of you have anything for me tonight on any subject?
I do.
Yep. Fire away, Jack.
Okay. So a few things. On tonight's stuff with the vendors getting paid, that just sparked a quick question. Are you paying for these as part of your package to your client, or are these vendors that are paid by the appropriate buyer?
That's an awesome question. Absolutely by my seller anytime I can get them. I'm in this business to be profitable. I didn't sign up to pay for something. I think some agents sign up to pay for things like staging. I don't. Anything, again, I'm very business oriented. What you get from me, I am very much worth that to you, right? So I'm not in the business of paying for your expenses and your deferred stuff. Having said that, okay, if there was a little nickel and dime bill at the end that he was going to be upset about, because I did have to make some of these calls myself. He doesn't really know the full story, that I had to get somebody in there to check the electrical as part of the alarm system and as part of this water heating system, that I had to make this issue go away. So there might be a bill that's a little bit heavy on that end to have done that. So having said that, yeah, that's, I might have to eat some of that. And I would in this case. I would.
Okay.
But right now it's all, but right now I work with my attorney and say, get this all on the closing disclosure and have it approved by the client. So 95% of this one is on the closing disclosure, right? So they're all being paid off of the at the closing. There's one bill, but the attorney will be handling the money that will be paid outside that closing disclosure.
Gotcha. Okay. And then open house questions.
Yep.
So I typed them all out earlier, ready to ask you.
Good.
So when I'm at an open house, if I meet a buyer who mentions they're also going to need to sell, do I hand them both packets or just a buyer packet and add a seller step plan? Or
yeah, if it's a sell buy, I gave both away recently, and it led to a $4.5 million listing presentation. And eventually they'll downsize into something 2.5. They're not going to do it now until 26, the fall of 26. So I'm a little bit outside of a year, but that's one of my classic follow-ups. They're absolutely going to be followed up on. They got both packages, and we will continue to digitally and physically send stuff on both sides because they're two different mentalities and two different transaction types.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I just want to verify my package includes the same stuff. The only thing that's different is a 6-step for my buyers or a 7-step for sellers. Is that right? Everything else is the same?
Yes, but I mean, again, the pictures and details of properties that sold, the buy side could be very different from the sell side. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I understand that.
that's a variable. Otherwise, The market update for both is the same, right? That's the only thing that's identical. The pictures and details, you want to give them on the buy side, pictures and details of properties that sold where they want to move to in the price range they want to move to. It might be the same stuff you're at the open house. It might not be. You got to find that out. And then plus you want to print some for sales where they want to go to. Solds to show them what the money's buying, for sales just to make it easier than looking at their phone, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So actually the buyer packet might be very different.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I understand that.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And then what does the follow-up for someone who didn't get a package from me at the open house look like? Like I either didn't get to talk to them, or they weren't an avatar.
Well, again, if they're not an avatar, why are you bothering at all?
So they may not be an avatar because they're not looking for the next 12 months, or maybe
all right, well, hold on. You don't know. Did you miss the opportunity to do all that work inside of the house?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I don't even talk to them.
I just need to know that.
Like this weekend.
I just need to know that. Let me see if we have an open house follow-up script. You can see me tomorrow on the call. We probably need to focus on an open house follow-up script for you. Okay. And for everybody in the group for that matter, because what we need to do is we need to ensure that you are you're following up appropriately by, really you have context. Jackie, it's Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling you is I want to thank you for coming to the open house at XYZ. And I was wondering if you could give me some feedback and your thoughts on the property, because I'd like to give that to the seller. Okay. So there's your context. Now they begin to speak, right? Hey, by the way, we didn't get a chance to visit. I'm just curious. Why were you thinking about buying a house? And just go into now you're in the buy script. That's it, right? How motivated are you by it? How motivated are you by it on a scale of 1 to 10? Because what I'd like to do is send you a package of information that can help you get the best. Just go into the script. But let's look at it tomorrow anyway to organize that. Okay?
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay.
Because the order of the questions might change a little bit. I want to think about it, because typically we say, thanks so much for the feedback. Hey, by the way, what I'd like to do is send you a package of information to help you get the best house at the best price. May I do that? Right? It will. I take the time to customize it. It will include this, this, and this, and this. Great. What's the best mailing address? That's the order we will start with. Okay. So I would just go to the buyer, internet buyer script, and we'll tweak it for open house. Okay.
Okay. And I'll have some more questions with that.
Yep.
Unless you want to answer it now, but I'm thinking okay, so I give them the package at the open house. I try to get motivation. I try to get timeline, and all of that, and their why. And then maybe I don't get that stuff because I'm not so great at giving it yet. But let's say I do get it. I give them their packet. I don't nail them down for an appointment or anything else. I miss beat 2 or 3 or whatever it is. I would love a follow-up script that kind of speaks to that and kind of picks back up and tries for that appointment again or something.
Well, again, you're pushing too hard for an appointment. There's no appointment yet. It's a heavy, heavy, heavy dose of getting them information and drawing them in and seeing if they're engaging you. Because if they are, hey, by the way, I sent you that information, but I also drove by one of these. Thought it was great. So I'm going to text you a picture. There's so many more things you need to do before you can take an appointment. So many.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I know it's so hard. It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get the brain to resist taking. I get it. But you just have to trust me. A heavy dose of giving. That's what we did with one of these buyers that we wrote a 2-2 offer on. And now we're just, sitting on the market. Like I told Laura, if you think there's a hot one coming on, I'll go sleep in my car out in front of it, right? Until they open the doors. I mean, that's how hungry I am when I go after something for a buyer. So, and that's just service at the highest level. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nigel, what do we got, buddy?
Hey, Danny, how's it going?
Good,
Can you hear me
pal.
all right? I'm in the gym,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I got you perfectly. Fire away.
Awesome. So I know that in the next couple of weeks, we're coming to the end of our 12-week course. So I was wondering if you would be open to working with me to make that start to end Excel checklist sheet. I think that would be very helpful to have on calls.
Yes. Be specific. What do you want my help with? Because it might already exist. What do you want to see?
I would like to make that start to end Excel sheet of the process from signing the purchase and sale to closing. So that way our agents can have something visual to look at.
Oh, yeah, I got you. To sit down. Yeah. So why don't we get through the course first, circle back with me, and then we can jump on a Zoom and I can give you some guidance to just say, okay. And again, Nigel, I would always put it in the context of the business model. So let me put that in the chat. When you're thinking like this, which I like the way you're thinking, let me put just a picture of the business model. If you don't already have it, I'll just make it easy for you in case anybody wants it. This is the cheat sheet for, tell me when you can see that PDF in the chat and download it, okay? Can you see it?
Yep, just got it.
Okay, beautiful. So that right there is the framework within which we make these checklists. So this course is broken down. Let me see if I can't show that too. Hang on. Let me show you because you're only seeing a simple list. I'm going to show you. I want to put it on the stream too, just so in case people go see it there. Hang on. Sorry, I'm juggling two things here. Okay, that should do it. All right. So here, if I scroll up, watch what I did up here. You see this here? Strategic business vision, right? And then I put in the TRC model explained. I put in the financial goal. Then I get into this. So you can do checklists for each of these sections that are stupid, simple, and rudimentary, right? And one of the easiest ways to do that, not that I want you to go back, I'm happy to handhold through it. I like what you're asking me, and the answer is absolutely yes. But for your own, ability to go back through this course, I made this, and Lauren's been doing a good job of putting these there. You could sit there and just listen to me and try to grab some of the tactical things in order and just capture them, right? I just want to be able to teach you how to fish, but I will fish with you, okay? Just got to let me get through the course, and then we'll do it.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And let me do this. I don't know. It sounds like you're on your phone. You might not be able to open this stuff I'm giving you, but I'll put it there anyway. This is a link to just this round I did. So there's not a whole bunch of other videos. I had a nice clean round here where each week we have a clean video of what we talked about. Okay. So always remember that one pager, and then everything I do is in that framework to a certain extent. Okay. Good. Yep. You're welcome. What else? Who else do we have? Any other questions tonight? Okay. Hearing none. Appreciate y'all being here, especially those of you that came to see me live in the office tonight. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for the effort. I love it when you come live. Thanks.